Hey guys, before we get into War Thunder Broken Spots Part 2, I just want to let you know that there has been a patch addressing the horizontal track friction physics, which allowed tanks to drive horizontally to extreme slopes without sliding. This in turn has affected the ability to get into some spots in the previous video, such as the first spot shown in Kuban. This may also affect the ability to get in some of the spots in this video, although most of them are still accessible. Now, after reading feedback from the first video, I want to give you guys what my definition of a broken spot is. My definition of a broken spot is the ability to snipe someone out of their spawn within 10 to 15 seconds of the match starting, or any spot that allows you to snipe into the enemy spawn early on into the game. Although I'll say sometimes the spot in question is not always the problem. Sometimes it's the lack of cover in the spawn. I also believe that any spot requiring you to get outside of the map borders via tank traps, rocks, or bugs is also broken. I would note that spots don't necessarily need to be outside of the map to be considered broken. Maps are designed to flow and play in a certain way, meaning that just because Gaijin hasn't made a slope too steep for you to climb doesn't mean it was intended for you to use. An example of this would be the bunker at the top of the hill in Ash River. You used to be able to climb up the hill and sit behind the bunker. That bunker has since been removed, and now rocks take its place to stop players from climbing. Now either gameplay has dictated that that spot is no longer viable and shouldn't be allowed to be used in the game, or it was an oversight that has now been fixed. So with that being said, I've decided to separate the clips I feel that don't meet my definition entirely and put them at the end of the video where you guys can let me know whether you think they're broken or not in the comments. Starting off with Middle East, you want to go to the E1 spawn zone and then make your way down to the bottom right hand corner of F1. On the map you'll notice that there's a rock outcropping, and then as you begin to drive up here, kind of aligning yourself with the right hand side of C, as you back up to get the most height, you can see over the top of the buildings and into the enemy spawn. With this spot, you're going to spawn in the E6 spawn zone. There'll be a massive hill on your left. You want to drive around to the front side of the hill, and then you can just begin to climb straight up. Now you can drive all the way up to the top, although I wouldn't recommend it. You're pretty vulnerable, and I would only attempt this at the beginning of the game, and even with that said, I would only do it in very fast vehicles. Although you don't need to get all the way up to the top, you can stop and get into some rock positions on your way up, and that's plenty fine. But if you do manage to get all the way up to the top, you can reap the rewards of being able to see the whole battlefield and take cover behind this ridgeline. Moving on to Middle East, you'll find this spot in the mid to bottom right hand corner of B2. And basically you just want to angle yourself slightly and drive up to the top of this rock or mountain, whatever you want to call it. Now you can reach the spot from the C1 or the A3 spawn zone. A3 will provide you more cover. And once you're up to the top of this, you'll be able to see into the E3 spawn zone, and there's virtually nothing that they can do to snipe you out of this position if you use the cover up here. The only way they're going to get you out of the spot is by bombing you. And from here you have clear cover of the A point, and you can cover the two main roads that lead into the B point. Now with this spot, you're going to go for the C5, D5 spawn zone, turn to the right, and hug the rocks until you find this opening, where you can basically just climb up to the top of this ridgeline. Now, with this spot and the following, I'm kind of torn on whether I consider it broken, and the reason what I'll give you is that I don't necessarily know that Gaijin has intended for you to use this spot, although it is fairly easy to get up, so that would, I mean, maybe. With this spot, it's an A4. You're going to spawn in the A3 spawn zone, and it's basically the same thing, except you look to the left, follow the rocks until you find the opening. Now you can actually go up all the way to the top, like towards the rocks that my gun barrel's pointing towards. But I ended up turning around and coming down to the spot. You can cover pretty much anything going in between B and C, going towards the spawn camp. You can cover C a little bit, and just in general there's a lot of cover compared to the previous spot, and it's just a lot better, and you have a lot more range. You can actually drive quite a distance left and right of this spot. Now this clip is just from the very top. I had to slow it down because it was really short. With this spot, you're going to go to the top right hand corner of C4. I don't actually think this spot's broken. I just recorded it in the process of getting the spot coming up, but you can actually catch people going to the C point from here, and you can cover the B point. You can go to the spot from either spawn. It's very strong, and there's a little bit of cover up here, rocks and etc. But as you drive down this hill, you'll see this hill, and you can drive up this hill. Once you drive up this hill, you will see that you can see clear as day down the path to the spawn. Alright, kicking off Sinai is going to be this spot right behind the A2 spawn zone. You basically just make a U-turn as soon as you spawn in, and then climb up a slight incline, and then make your way over to this gap between the rocks. You do this fast enough and you can literally snipe people right out of their spawn and before they make their way over to the side of the map on the right. This spot is in A3. You'd probably get here from the A3 spawn zone. You climb up this rock and you basically just kind of work your way up through these rocks. They're almost like stepping stones. And now on this, now that you've gotten up the small ones, you can climb this bigger one with relative ease. Now, I will say that the spots in this map in particular, I'd say there's some good ones, some bad ones, and some ones that are debatable. This one, I suppose, would be good if you could manage to get into it without getting shot. I've never used it. And if you could get into this spot, it'd be even better, because you have the shadow covering you, and there's actually a little bit of a hold down position right here, and nobody would ever expect it. Now this spot is going to be in the C4 grid zone, basically hugging onto the rocks like we did in the previous video, or the clip. You just climb your way up. Now, in my opinion, this would only really be effective if you were coming from the A3 spawn zone, but overall I think it might be just too cumbersome. Although if you do get into it, it's very powerful. So maybe if there is a leeway in the fighting, nobody's really pushing towards C, you could get up here quick, and then from here you could snipe into their spawn. And now you can stop there, you can keep going. There's a couple maybe arguably equal spots, but mainly I just wanted to see how far I could take it. So I continued to drive up these rocks and basically follow this. It's almost kind of like a path, just making your way from one rock to the next. Actually, no, it's more like a puzzle. But basically you keep going down those rocks and you come up on this big rock that you can side climb on, and then this was the spot that was really difficult. I just wanted to see how high I could possibly get in the map on Sinai, and I was able to side climb zigzag this rock, which I am willing to bet, since the patch came out, is no longer possible. But I just want you guys to see this absolute ridiculous spot. It's not practical to get up here, but it's just the fact that it was possible is what I'm trying to point out. Because I mean, imagine getting up here playing hide and seek or something. I mean, they'd never find you. If you could manage to get up here before they found you, I mean, you'd be unstoppable. Nobody'd ever find you. I mean, look at this view. It's just awesome. And as a matter of fact, you can actually continue to go a little bit farther. You can't really get much higher, but you can actually go slightly farther. Fall off the side of the map. In this spot, you're going to spawn in the D1 spawn zone, turn around, and basically just like you did in the A2 spawn zone, pop a UE and start driving up the hill behind the spawn. Now personally, I would stop right here. I would get hold down behind these rocks and you can snipe people coming out of the A1 spawn zone. But like in the previous clip, I wanted to see how far I could take it, so I just continued to drive and zigzag my way through the rocks. And if any of this interests you guys, you can check out these spots as well. Also really good for, you know, hide and seek. And the thing with this one is I don't think it requires zigzagging up. I think you could just, like you saw my friend there, he just ramped his way up. So I didn't try that way. I just did the zigzag tactic, but with the patch, who knows if that works. Probably doesn't. This spot is going to be towards the middle of the B1 grid square, and you just basically climb over this rock that you can actually see on the map, and you'll notice the rocks kind of form a wedge shape. You basically make a beeline straight down that, and the rocks aren't steep enough to prevent you from climbing, so climb up to the top of this. And now I know you guys are probably thinking, wow, you're so exposed, but realistically, I've seen a lot of people get into the spot. The most difficult part is pretty much right here, is just crossing that little gap, so you're not going to be able to do it with most vehicles, and I have to say a lot of these spots are kind of more geared towards the higher horsepower vehicles, although it doesn't mean that you can't do them with lower BR vehicles. Just depends on the power to weight ratio. And once you climb up onto this rock, you could stop here, or you can kind of ram yourself into this one and keep climbing. Now from this spot, you could stop people that are pushing around the left side of the map in their tracks. They would have no idea what's going on, where they're getting shot from. You can cover the B point, and you can cover the A point, watch people go into the B point. Really strong in general, very good spot. Now on to 38th parallel. A lot of you guys have been telling me about spots in this map and or asking me to cover it. So in the grid square A4, kind of in the middle, there's a hill that you will see on the left if you spawn in A3. And you basically just kind of follow it around, and you'll see this elevated ground spot that you can kind of ramp up onto. Now the key is you have to do it in reverse, because they fixed this already, but if you do it in reverse, you can turn the back side of your tank and then keep all your weight on the rear. Although there is a much easier spot, which is right here. You just go into A3 kind of towards the bottom middle, and you just ramp up in between the rock and this little dirt ledge. And then once you're up here, I mean, it's a very good spot. It is kind of exposed, but once you see that I get to the top, you can go down onto this little ridge area. That is right here is pretty hull down. And you can cover the B spot, and you can shoot those trees directly to the slight right of my tank, and you can see the path coming in between A and B, and that's a great spot to kill people at. And you can see a little bit of A. Now this spot is just blatantly broken. Behind the right side, when you spawn in an A3, you can climb over this hill, and then you just gotta be careful to get yourself in between the tank traps. This is the key part. And then you need as much speed as possible. It's gonna take a few tries, but you just ramp right up, you start to get some traction, and then boom, you're over. The problem is you're gonna have a explosion timer essentially, so you gotta rush over to the corner that I just tucked into. It's just basically front right of where that last clip ended, And now I have it forwarded, so you back up, reset your timer, ramp up over this little, I don't even know what you want to call it, like rock ledge. Then drive towards the A point, reset your timer again, just like I did. Then in this spot I used my speed in order to ramp up, but as you get farther and farther up, the easier it gets to get over those maps. And by the way, you won't get a like explosion timer the higher you get up, unless you go back too far, but most of this is inside the map. Now this is probably the most difficult one to do out of all of them, but once you get over that, you just drive up to the front of this hill, and then you can reverse your way up. Definitely going to require a fast tank to do this, and you can also apply this principle to get on top of the dam. Even though you'll die once you get up there, you can get up there. It's just you need something like a VT or really fast vehicle. Now for this spot, you're going to go to G3 spawn zone, kind of like the middle upper section, and use the principle I showed in the last clip. You just kind of ram yourself at an angle up into these slopes, and eventually you'll catch a spot where you gain the traction. Horsepower will kind of dictate your ability or ease in order to get over these spots, but it is still doable on some tanks that don't have crazy horsepower. Kind of depends on the height as well, a little bit on the suspension. And you can use things like the rock in order to wedge yourself up, or if you have a friend that pushes you. It's all ways that you can use to get up here. But from this spot, you can cover over the B point, and that's basically the main reason of getting in here. And you can see kind of deep towards their spawn. Not into it, but the roads leading down to the B point. Now this spot is in D2, and just like you see, you can ramp up this dirt mound if you have enough horsepower. My MBT-70 or KPZ-70 didn't have enough horsepower because it wasn't spaded, but if you were in the 2A4, you would have went straight up. And once you're up here, you can get on top of the bridge, cover the A point, look down the river. You can look towards their spawn. It's just another crazy spot that I've come across. There was actually another one right where my gun's pointing. There was the ability to get on top of that huge mountain in the middle, but they did fix that. Alright, now for the next 4 clips, I want you guys to tell me how you feel about these spots in the comments. This spot's going to be found in the middle top of C6, and the reason why I would argue this could be considered broken is you can get into it very soon after the spawn, and you can lock down the enemy spawn in C1. Although it's very accessible, and there's a lot more to this spot than just spawn camping. I think in this case, it's probably just the spawn zone not having enough cover. For this spot on El Alamein, you're going to go for the middle of B4, and you can just kind of climb straight up the hill. And from this spot, you can stop any advance going to the C point, and if you decide to keep driving a little bit more, you can snipe into the enemy spawn in A3, which I don't know if I would consider it broken because it is over the halfway point of the map, so I wouldn't say you can get into it very quickly, although I don't believe Gaijin has intended for you to use this spot like this. This spot, also in El Alamein, is found in the middle of the B3 grid square. Coming up from the B point, you just stay to the left of the road leading towards A3, and then you can climb on top of this plateau. Now from this spot, you can spawn camp them pretty bad. they will basically never see it coming. This being the last spot, you want to go to Sinai and spawn in the D3 spawn zone. Basically just make a U-turn and then climb up the elevation behind the spawn where you can use the rocks for cover and cover a vast amount of land. Now, I would err on the side of fair game. It doesn't violate any bugs or map borders or anything like that. And you also can't see into spawn. But the argument is, did Gaijin intend for you to use this spot like this, or is it just a map oversight? And like always, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. In this past week, we've reached 3,000 subscribers and my first 100,000 view video. Those are both big milestones to me, and I couldn't have done it without you. So if you guys want to join the Discord family, check out the link in the description box below. And until then, I'll catch you in the next one.